Thank you. It's a privilege to be the second Dane on the stage today, on the podium, and opposite Søren, I will get 10 minutes. I'm supposed to give a little insight into bring to life with EUPATI examples, and I will try to do that in a helicopter perspective, and hopefully afterwards, if you have more detailed questions, we can probably take them there. I'm coming from, as was said, University of Copenhagen, BIOPEOPLE, which is the Danish Innovation Network for Health and Life Sciences. And how do I do next? Like this. This is the classical way to view how drugs were developed if you go some years back. It was an interplay between the industry and the doctors. And what we hopefully will achieve is that we will create a triangle, and as Ingrid also have said many times, and I myself use the same word, we will try to introduce a paradigm shift, and the overall purpose is, of course, to have a shared goal of getting the right treatment to the right patients at the right time. So this is a triangle, and it should not be considered as the Bermuda Triangle, but more a cooperative triangle. And if you look a little bit at the situation, how it looks today, and I will not offend anybody, but this is the summary of some answers we have got from the surroundings, is that people or patients are largely aware of how to participate in clinical trials, but also in translational research, personal medicines, pharmacoeconomics, and also how their supportive role could be in the future. And there might probably be other things too. So the vision for EUPATI would be to educate patients, to be active in the drug development process, both when it comes to recruit patients for participation in clinical trials, but also to be active in designing protocols, informed consent, as we also have heard a little bit about earlier, ethical review processes, marketing authorization, value assessment, healthcare policies, and only fantasy will set the limitations on the engagement and involvement of patients in the future. We have this paradigm, as I said before, and what is important here, and which would be the huge challenge for the consortium, is to get the right information to the right people at the right time in a useful format, and we should not forget that it's also important to develop the right information also. And in order to do that, we need to take a very diligent approach. We need to define what is the right information, what is the useful format, and how is the right time, and what will be the right people. And in order to do that, we need to have an iterative process. And in that process, we have the consortium partners, and on top of that, we also have our advisors on board, and we have tools to be used that will, I'm sorry for the persons in the back, it's probably not easy to see what is down here, but it's a resource review we have been through, focus groups across Europe. Some of you attended last evening, and we also have the national platforms for EUPATI. So it's a process, and the ultimate goal will be to come out with a unique product. And if you look at this, I can enlarge it a little bit, and it has been shown earlier today that we are aiming at 3 different levels, so to speak. We will have this certificate training program aiming at 100 patient advocates that will become experts. Then we will have the Toolbox, and then we will have the internet library for lay people in general. So the first year has been a very interesting year because we have this, we all come with cultural differences, and we have to go together, and we have to come up with products. And this is the product we have achieved in the beginning of this year, to come up with a certificate syllabus for Audience 1. And that has been divided into 6 distinct modules, and that will cover the medicine's development process from A to Z. And for each topic in the syllabus, learning outcomes have been defined, and the overall purpose is, of course, to be familiar with the language and be able to understand the guidelines. So this is how the 6th module looks like. We start actually from the beginning, discovery of medicines and planning of medicines development. Then you go to the next step, the non-clinical testing and the development of the pharmaceutical development, and that means the development of how the drug should be presented. Then you go into the exploratory and confirmatory clinical development phase. Then you go to clinical trials, then to the regulatory affair, and then you go on market and health technology assessments. So it's an order you have to follow in order to go through this program. And this is an example. I mean, if we look at the exploratory part and enlarge it a bit, you can see we have for that part 14 topic points. And this is an example of one of the topic points, 3.1. It says phases of clinical development, exploratory and confirmatory clinical development versus phases 1 to 4 of clinical development. And for that, one learning outcome has been defined, and it says describe the process of medicines development and identify critical factors and decision points. That's an example, and the same goes for 3.8. Again, applicability of pharmacokinetics to dosage regime and study design, and based on that, an outline has been defined. This is another example, and this is just to show that here we have much more topics compared to the previous one. We have actually 37 topics here, and again, just an example, investigator brochure, content review and maintenance, and here we have the learning outcomes. There are more learning outcomes that I could have on the slide, but this is just to show you that for some topics we have one learning outcomes, and for others there will be different learning outcomes. And the same goes actually for this critical review. So that's the principle of how the syllabus have been built for audience 1. If we are moving into audience 2, which would be the Toolbox, and it would be an online resource where you can go in and get the information, and that syllabus or topic points, whatever we would like to call it, is actually built. It's for audience 2 now. It's actually built on the same principles, and altogether we have 133 topic points for audience 1, and I think we have a little bit more for this audience. And again, we have the same modules, but opposite the other ones where you should start from 1 and go to 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here it's up to you. I mean, if you are going to join a certain advisory group, you can say, okay, that has something to do with clinical trials, then I start here. So the order is more random compared to the syllabus for audience 1. And again, the topic points, just to illustrate the same I showed with clinical trials, we have again something describing investigator brochure, and we also have something describe critical review, study, report, etc., etc. But here we will not have any learning outcomes. So it will be up to the person who seeks the information to say, okay, now I feel well equipped in order to participate in whatever it might be. So what are we creating? This is for audience 1, audience 2, and audience 3. And we haven't talked much about audience 3 yet, but it's a thing we are starting to do in the near future. But the certificate training program will, as been mentioned several times now, be e-learning, and it will be classroom style, face-to-face training, and the course will be in English. The Toolbox thing will be, as said, modules on the internet where I could go in and pick and choose, and there will be a repository of different things you can use, videos, webcasts, etc. And that will also go actually for audience 1. So the e-learning could also have the same elements as for audience 2, and maybe some of the material for audience 1 could be applicable also for audience 2 directly. Yeah, and again also to mention that the language would be in more than English, and it's put it up here. Even that I could understand from the previous speaker that there might be some challenges in translating English medical terms into a local language, and it should have the same meaning as we understand it in English. So I hope I have give a picture of where we are at the moment, and where we are with regard to developing the syllabus. The syllabus is not set in stone in the sense that normally if you are writing an assignment, you write a list of things you want to cover in that assignment, and during the assignment writing, you come up with ideas you think are interesting to put into the assignment. And the same goes for this syllabus. As we work with it, there might be changes that come up, and we will put it in, and there might be things we will take out in order to follow the process and the progress, and also be able to change things according to legislation that will come up during the years. So that would be my famous last word, and thank you.